how do you make sure that agents kind of work under your authority?
When did you guys first realize that you want to be builders?
Which was around when I was doing my undergraduation. What I ended up recognizing, writing code is not great. Removing code is more important.
I'd say the thing that AI does best is it works as your assistant really well, but the actual logic should come from your head. There's no theoretical way of learning how to develop an application except by actually doing it. You'll find a lot of problems along the way, but the more problems you face, the more experience you get as a developer.
I actually don't want to be a computer science engineer. I want to be a mechanical engineer. But yeah, I got into computer science and then I built a passion for this.
Whether it's AI, agents, or protocols, at the end of the day, we are still the ones designing these systems, and whatever we build is eventually what people live through.
Technology is going to get more and more closer to your life. Now you have skills for this, right? You're going to digital interactive. But where I started, where I see and where I go, I think everything will work on digital. So that means digital is to define how human beings operate, not the other way around.
All right, gentlemen, good to have you all here today. It's the second episode of the Humanized podcast, and we have two guests today, Rahul Lenkala, the founding developer, and Aditya Ganesh, the devil at MOI. I'm gonna host this with AK, and I think today's conversation is going to be very, very exciting and slightly different as well. Now, why I'm saying this? Because we are probably going to end up talking a lot about builders and developers. Mainly because we have three devs here today, Rahul, Adi, and AK himself. One thing is very, very clear. Since all three of them are devs, but they have been devs in very, very different points in time. So we're gonna have some good amount of conversational things brewing between all three of them. Now, before starting this, I just want to ask a very, very simple question. How do you guys feel today?
Yeah, no, I feel good. The weather has gotten a lot better. It's not minus 45 degrees anymore, so sun is out. It's a good day. It's a good day to you know talk to some friends.
So, Adi, are you saying minus 45 you don't like?
Don't minus 45.
If in India we have minus 45, we would be bro under chills, man. But yeah,
Minus five for Fahrenheit, right? Not centigrade.
yeah, Fahrenheit, yeah, obviously. To start off with, I believe I should be asking a very, very basic and a simple foundational question, so that all of the people who will be watching this in future, or maybe our own team, anybody else, any builder, so that they have a better context of what you guys do and how you guys started this journey. So my first question would be, when did you guys first realize that you want to be builders?
Yeah. So when did I start building? Right in college. It was around like when I was doing my undergraduation in computer science. So that's when I decided that okay, I can be a good developer. So that's back in what 2015. Yeah, 2015. And yeah, I started as a Java developer, building some basic POCs and MVPs for my university, helping the examination department to manage the daily chores. So that's how I started, and I got excited. And computer science subjects were very interesting for me. Operating systems, databases. Slowly, that turned out to be a passion. I actually don't want to be a computer science engineer. I want to be a mechanical engineer. But yeah, I got into computer science, and then I built a passion for this while I was studying in college. So yeah,
When you mentioned this, you wanted to be a mechanical engineer, but you turned out to be a computer science. That was something I could relate a lot, because I believe every developer today is kind of someone who wants to be something else, but and all those scenarios become a computer science engineer. Could
no,
you
but
tell
I
us?
was studied with passion. I like computer science.
Uh,
It's not that I turned out to be a computer science engineer. It's a deliberate choice. But when I was young, I always admired to be a mechatronics or mechanical engineer, building some cool robots. That is what I was very passionate about. But yeah, then I realized that it's far away from the reality. So let me just get closer to the reality by building some software.
So, Rahul, I will take this question up later with you. I think with the advent of AI, maybe being not a computer science engineer and mechanical engineer might have been a better choice. So,
No, I still have a mechatronics, a mechanical background. I'm very
so,
interested in physics,
so,
so I can always go back as a different.
so skill-based capabilities they think are going to get displaced a lot slower. So maybe you still you may get to work on your passion still if AI displaces your job.
I mean, this is something which my friends are also considering, and I'm also considering, right? Apart from your regular job, my friends are going and taking some skill courses, maybe carpentry, plumbing, right? It's seriously, and my father you always used to say this, right? Hey, rather than just typing something, why don't you go learn some carpentry or something?
Interesting.
Could you tell us more about your professional journey as well? How did you get into Web3 as a builder? Because obviously Web3 is a different thing.
Okay, so I didn't know that I was getting into Web3. As I told you, I was a Java developer in college, and that's why I came across a job post in Acumen in Bangalore. I was not from Bangalore, I was from Hyderabad. So I just came to Bangalore to give an interview. And then I got to know, I mean, when I was taking the bus, I was figuring out, okay, what is this company doing? Okay, they are saying AI plus blockchain. Okay, they're doing something there. And that's when I got to know what is a blockchain, right? And yeah, I heard about blockchain in college, but I didn't pay attention to it. So that's when I got to know, okay, there's something called blockchain. This technology is very transformational. And then that's how I got into my Web3 journey. I started with Equipment as an associate software engineer. That's when I met Ananta, I met all our first. I started as an associate there, building some basic POC for what we call today MOI. Earlier, it was called as CHIP, Krapmai protocol. So I started reading the white paper that Ananta and team has put out, and slowly starting to build the building blocks for KIP, and now it is MOI. So that's how it started, and it's been 6 years into this. Lots of ups and downs. Very interesting journey, I would say. Not just professionally for me, also as personally as a person. It has changed the way I was thinking. It has changed the way I approach problems, and that's how I got into Web3, mostly into protocol development. Fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't ever get to write a single line of JavaScript. I should thank this for pushing me into developing some application stuff. I was always on the protocol side of things. So yeah, that's how my journey started. And in this process, I was also an open source contributor to a couple of other projects in the domain. But so far, it is excited. I get to work with Ananta, other team members as well, questioning very fundamental things in blockchains where people took things for granted, right? So and that's what which made me interesting about this industry. And I would say like Web3, I got introduced to Web3 by this company.
Interesting too. Good to know. Like we have been talking for a while now, like around 2 years, but this is the first time I got to listen to your story. Like how did you get into Web3 as well? Adi, the same question goes for you as well. I feel your memory would be a little more fresh. You just got into Web3, I guess, a lot closer to what where we are today. So could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll also talk a bit about how my journey also started in college. I think I was a freshman and looking around for a bunch of different clubs to join. And I had one goal in mind that I just want to pick one kind of niche thing and then eventually build my skills in that particular domain. I didn't really know what blockchain was for the longest time. I just knew that there's this club called Boiler Blockchain in Purdue, the university I studied in, and they had a bunch of people over there who used to trade Bitcoin, who used to trade different kind of tokens. I thought, okay, you know what, I'm starting on my career. Why not try something like this? I can probably make a lot of money in the next 1 year. Spoiler alert: I did not make a lot of money in the next 1 year, but when I joined that club, essentially I joined with the idea of Bitcoin trading, Ethereum trading, and I had a couple of people over there who were on those lines, but a couple more people were actually talking about this whole distributed systems and data structures. And keep in mind, I studied applied math and economics in college. I initially wanted to do applied math and physics so I can get into astrophysics, but then I joined Bottle Blockchain. I had no idea about. I had a very basic understanding of what a data structure was, And I hear these guys talking about like using like big words, Merkle trees, cryptography. I mean, at this point, I had a faint idea, but not too much. And yeah, I spoke to these guys, started learning from them. Eventually, I went to ETH San Francisco, and this is one of my favorite stories that I like to tell. Like every like young developer I meet. This is pre AI, by the way. ETH SF 2021, 2022. Um, I went there. I had a very basic understanding, and my teammates were about all like 3 to 4 different seniors, and we were building like a project which was decentralizing education. I don't know exactly what it was, but basically giving like a decentralized. So it was something like a decentralized education platform. And obviously, I didn't know what a smart contract was, nothing. So my team members basically just told me, okay, we're gonna go to sleep now. We finished all the backend logic. Now you gotta write all the smart contract, all the front end code, and connect it. These guys just went to sleep. It was 3 a.m. I've written about like 100 lines of code in my life at this point. But I kind of locked in. I spent the whole night, about 7 hours, and I learned how to write JavaScript code. And it was initially one of my proudest achievements because we ended up winning a prize at my first ever hackathon. We won one of the sponsor prizes. I don't remember exactly which one. And all my senior teammates were sleeping. They didn't submit. We had to get like a pitch deck going, a demo going. But the saddest part about this is now, if I were written about like, let's say 1,000 lines of JavaScript code in 2021, there's no point writing front end code anymore. So all those skills I learned that I proudly brag about to all my friends, it's not a skill anymore, unfortunately, because of AI. On a more like serious note, I went to ETHSF. I got introduced to the world of Web3 and blockchain, and I just really enjoyed the vibe over there. Like it didn't feel like I expected a conference to have people wearing suits, with ties and um, you know like a more formal setting. But Web3 was a lot less that vibe. It was more casual conversation. Like you'll never have someone try to say that they're better than you because of a certain position, like because of where they work or what they do. I kind of really enjoyed that vibe a lot. I got into it because of the vibe, because of the people. And then eventually I started learning about it and went like, okay, you know what, wait, this is actually a lot of interesting math stuff, which went right up my alley. And yeah, I started developing, I started coding, learned all of it on my own. I learned Solidity from this guy named Patrick Collins, who's a very famous YouTuber. He has like a 24-hour YouTube video, which a lot of developers use. I went to ETHSF, went to Denver, went to a bunch of hackathons, and yeah, I mean that's how I essentially started my Web3 journey and how I started developing as well. It's been quite fun so far, I must say.
Yeah, that takes me to something deeper. I think a lot of people learn to build, but then not many of them focus on why they're building what they're building. So it's a very interesting trend I've seen with a lot of developers. Uh, so Raul, this question is to you. So what does it mean for you? Because you said you learned something fundamental. So what does it mean for you to say build a fundamental solution as opposed to a product or an objective solution? Uh, is there a way to look at the problem differently, or is there
Yeah,
is there is there a mindset difference when you look at a problem fundamentally and as opposed to learning to build? So
yeah. I mean, while I was in college, right? For me, building is about, hey, what cool feature we have, right? Hey, how does the UI look, right? So it's more about aesthetic. It's more about cool features. It's like a kid saying, hey, I can play this video game, and this game has this X features, right? So for me, it's when I was in college, when I was building the initial products before joining Acumen Server. It for me, it was all about like any other engineer. It's all about building cool stuff, right? And I've never bothered about, is this cool stuff really usable, right? For example, if I build a UI which has like 10 transitions before filling up the form, that was cool for me because I have 10 transitions and it looks cool, it is jazzy. But for a person who's really using it, it's like it sucks, right? Ask to go to 10 button clicks, right? So that thing has really changed when I joined Serva. When I started talking to real product people, they're like, "Hey, what are you doing? Right? Why do you really need all this complexity?" Right? So for me, the way to look at the problem, the way to look at the product has really changed because now I got to understand that it's not as an engineer, it's as an user, as an end user. How would you feel about this product? right? Is it simple to use? Is it really solving the problem which is intended to solve? Or is it really making my life more complicated, right? So for I started thinking in that lens. Hey, as an engineer, it looks cool for me, but as an end user, will I use this product, right? As an end user, does it really make any sense for me? And that changed the entire game. I used to be very proud that, hey, I wrote like 50,000 lines, or 30,000 lines, or 20,000 lines, right? But what I ended up recognizing, dude, it doesn't matter. Okay. Are you it's really helping your customer? Okay. Maybe 5 lines. Okay. It may be just 5 lines of code, which may make your customer life very easy. Right. So I used to take proud for all these things like, oh, cool, jazzy UI, like 20, 30,000 lines of code. But end of the day, it's not what it matters. Right. So that has really changed the way I see these products, the way we design the products at Sarva, the way we have engineered systems at Sarva. Right. Because end of the day, it's all about the users. It's all about the customers who are going to use it. Right. So that has really changed. Now I say writing code is not great. Removing code is more important, right? You can get 5,000 lines, then it's a real good product. So right from the point of taking credit to writing more number of lines to just removing lines of code or making it a very simple, easy to use product. That's how my mindset has changed working here.
Very interesting. So when you say fundamental, it's not so much about just technology. It's about fundamentally being useful to the
Useful, yeah.
uh, in user. So I think that is sometimes people get carried away being too fundamental for the sake of being fundamental, and then that kind of increases complexity. So
I was there. I
yeah,
was really careful
yeah.
for quite some time.
A lot of us get caught in that vortex, right? So I would give a specific example that very recently when I started this journey, somebody was at that point building an decentralized cab hailing application. So you got to pay tokens, you got to use complex wallets, you got to do this, you got to do that. And then I went to my friend. She used to run marketing for a very large consumer product company. So I was talking to a good friend of mine. I said, "Why don't you use this?" She said, "For all this complication, I would just use Uber." So it was decentralized, it was great, but then the user experience didn't work, and it really didn't add value to the end
I
user. So
mean,
sometimes we complicate things, right? And fundamental really means being useful, is what I'm hearing you saying.
yeah. I mean, this is a big problem for the entire industry, is what I feel, right? In the name of decentralization, we have completely messed up the user experience, right? It's like today my mother even still cannot use MetaMask, right? It used to be complicated, but now as the industry is maturing, we as an organization is also maturing. Now we're all of us, our friends in the industry, are also talking about, hey, this is great, but how do I simplify this? Can I just access blockchain with just username and password? Right. I remember this was the first question that you asked. All this is great. Can I just use it with username and password? Okay. Without managing my seed phrase, right? That kept me thinking.
So no, I think that sometimes we get carried away by the beauty of the math and technology and the depth, and then just kind of don't understand the context of how it drives value to the user. So when you say fundamental, I think what caught me was you saying fundamental means being relevant and useful to people. I think that's a much more better way of looking at this. Adi, you said you are a applied math and economics major. Do you like math a lot?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let me give you an example. So back in, let's say, 11th and 12th grade, right? In 10th grade, actually, my final score in French was 18 out of 80. So 18 out of 80. There was one person in my class who got more in the first question alone, which is the essay section, than in the entire paper. But at the same time, my math and to an extent computer science and history were always above like a 95. And there was less about the fact that I found math easy, more about the fact that I actually spent a lot of time understanding the foundations and what actually made math. That's why I decided to do it in college. Then I very quickly got humbled there also by a lot of the more abstract concepts in math.
Yeah. So what does fundamental mean to you? What do you think? This idea of more than what I'm building. Why am I building it? And how is it fundamentally different? What does that mean to you? You look at it a little more from a math angle.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different when it comes to Web3 as a whole, because I feel like we've built a couple of layers on top of math, and the actual cryptography aspect gets kind of abstracted. But, foundationally, when I first started learning about blockchains, it was like a big emphasis on what a trapdoor function is, how like elliptical curve cryptography worked. So I spent a lot of times on those specific concepts that, generally a lot of people necessarily wouldn't, because again, that layer has been abstracted already. And yeah, I really find interest in all of those kind of
Yeah, I think when you mentioned about elliptic cryptographies, I still wonder with this fascination function, right? So, million people offline can use the same function and create a relationship between two variables. And then the probability of they colliding is almost infinitesimal. That's a mind-boggling method. So I don't know how many people really appreciate it, because we can all, if it has to update a centralized database for that relationship, you're dead, right? So with the entire thing sits on that very interesting function which reduces collision for, if as long as you're in the same function. That's very, very interesting. So Rahul, what is the fundamental interest in things that you're building? Where are you in your builder's journey at this point? Some thoughts?
So yeah, I mean, all my professional journey is all about building MOI. What I've been working for the last 6 years is to build the participant layer of internet, where participants have existence in the stack, not just as a row in the database. That is what I've been focused on, and I'm currently also working on it. As it stands today, the protocol is fully built. Currently, as I told you, we are focusing more on applications. So, end user applications with how participant layer can really make their lives better, their user experience better in the existing applications. Not just a Web3 thing, a Web2 thing as well. The participant layer can be integrated into a Web2 application, Web3 application, and more into AI agents. So currently we are very focused on how do we build trusted agents using the participant layer of internet. This layer is currently built on this fundamental computation paradigm called contextual compute. So currently our focus, I'm just reiterating, is more about building use cases, building SDKs supporting agentic economy.
Based on what you told earlier, right? So how does this really help somebody, right? Because I think anything cool and fundamental needs to help somebody. So I want to know how it have helps people. I think that was the mantra that you had laid out before. So
Yeah. So basically, let me just take a small example on how what exactly participant layer means, right? And how does it help, right? For example, you are using DoorDash, you're using Uber, we're talking about Uber, we're talking about a bunch of other consumer facing applications today, right? And all of these applications are linked to your phone number, isn't it? So now, unfortunately, if you have to change your phone number, you need to log into all these 20 applications or 15 applications and change your phone number, right? And that's very tedious task. You may even, without a phone number, you may even lose access to these applications, right? Because your phone number and your OTP to the phone number is the primary access to these applications these days, right? Apart from your email. So this is how the current days internet is. And now the problem is when I want to change my phone number, I have to go log into each and every application and change it. I don't know whether I can even log into it because now I've changed my phone. It may ask you to verify the OTP and I don't have access to the phone number, right? So, what is the fundamental problem here? The fundamental problem is me as a person is not recognized, right? What is recognized is my phone number, and that has nothing to, and the relationship between Rahul and Rahul's phone number is not maintained anywhere, right? So now what happened is I have a pseudo existence in their application databases, right? I don't have real existence at all. So this is a problem. I may lose access. If I just lose my phone, I lose access. And this is what we're trying to solve. We are trying to give existence to participants. So even though you lose your phone number, if you want to change your phone number, you get to a participant layer, just change an entry there, and it automatically, every application can fetch the latest phone number.
interesting. So are you saying Rahul has got an existence inside there?
Existence. Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So
Right.
so people are talking about millions of agents. So I don't want to go update millions of agents accessing.
Yeah,
So
it gets very complicated when you're trying to use agents, right? Now, today we have 20 applications. Think like this: there will be millions of agents that we may be using, knowingly or unknowingly, right? There may be a lot of agents which are running as backend services which we don't even know, right? Now, how do you give them access to your data without the fragmentation, as I told you, right? So, that is what we're trying to solve, right? So, For me, it becomes very simple. I go to my participant layer, I change my phone number, just one single click. And I don't need to bother about these 20 applications knowing my latest
So
phone
is
number.
this is this participant layer like a central database, Rahul? So as a database engineer, is it like a central database or something more to it than that?
It's more than that. It's just not about that. That's where it gets very interesting, right? Now, engineer side of my things, right? So it's just not a database, right? It's the value layer, right? And I don't want to get in too much detail into the value semantics, but it is just not a store which is putting some, you put some information there and it is accessible to these things.
Now, is it in one place or is it in many places? Because you said participant layer of internet. So internet is very broad, right? And very flat. I may be accessing different agents, may be accessing at different points. So is this data stored in many places or it'll be stored in a few places?
End of the day, it's a blockchain network, right? Underneath, it's a blockchain network. The data is being distributed across all the nodes in the network to technically, right? So there's no single point of failure. It's not controlled by a single entity or an organization. End of the day, it's all decentralized validators coming up together to maintain your state, right? And it is eternal, right? It's not under control of an organization or entity. It's under your control, as you rightly said. It's controlled by your cryptography,
Yeah.
and it is distributed across all the validators who are part of the
So
network.
I kind of have the privacy too. The other concern I would have is if it's a database where or layer in which all data is being stored, it better be controlled by me, right? And I should be able to expose what I want to the people the right in the right way, isn't it? So is
Yeah.
it still controlled by the people, or
Yeah,
is
it
it?
is because we have selective disclosure. We have all cool ZK tech involved. Is for example, assume you want to put medical data, but you don't want to expose your medical data onto this layer, right? You encrypt all your medical data with a key, and you selectively share this key with a bunch of applications that you trust, right? And you can revoke the access to these applications as well. So the protocol serves as the eternal source of information without knowing what exactly that information is, right? So you don't need to disclose any of your private information. The information, at rest, the information can be encrypted, right? As a validator who is hosting the infrastructure for this network, I don't know what this data is, right? It's still under your control, and you can selectively disclose to the applications or agents which are running on top of us.
So some agents I can give them the passport number. Some agents I don't have. I don't have to. So I was reading an interesting tweet yesterday, Rahul. I think the chief data officer for uh, uh, I think Mastercard said something like, "Hey, we have connectivity between agents. We have payments within the agents, but how do we know the agents was authorized to spend on my behalf, right? So this is a huge problem today. uh, I might want the agent to spend $50. Vardhan may want the agent to spend $100, and somebody else may want and tomorrow morning I may change my mind. I may become allergic to a drug uh, which should not be processed. So this how do you get this authority? So this seems to be a large problem because everybody is getting onto this agentic model of transacting, right? Autonomously transacting. And I think there was a tweet I read is saying that how do you make sure that agents kind of work under your authority? Does this participant layer help there as well?
Exactly. It is
Mm,
exactly meant for that, right?
mm,
So, for
mm.
example, it's very tricky when you see how these autonomous agents have been utilized today. Let me give a small example. Assume I want to go attend Consensus Miami. I am gonna basically, humans are the orchestrators today, right? I orchestrate all of the events. I go book my flights, the flight preferences I have, the timing preferences I have. I may avoid red eye flights. All right, or I can go book a hotel which I want a city view of it or the ocean view of it, right? So humans have their preferences, humans have their own choices, all right? And they are the orchestrators. Humans are the glue today. I may use booking.com, I may use Marriott hotels, I may use meetup.com or Uma to go figure out the events as well, right? Humans are the orchestrators, and now humans make, in the current systems, in the current flows, humans make their decisions, and it is always context aware, right? You may choose a red eye flight in one situation, and you may avoid a red eye flight in a different situation, right? So it's completely context aware, right? And that's what participant layer is, right? So we, as a protocol, doesn't just store your data, but we're context aware, right? We have we have provided the opportunity or capability for user to store his preferences and to store his authorizations in a very context aware fashion, right? So it's just not about a single access control list, because it is no beyond an access control. It's not that, oh, you get access to my credit card. It's not like that, right? It's about, hey, you can use my credit card. If this is the transaction that you're doing, you're allowed it to spend this amount of time. And
And I can change my mind too if
you
I
can
want
change your
tomorrow.
mind, right? So
Mm.
this was never a problem all these days because we are orchestrating. But now with these agents, it becomes so tedious, right? It
Mm.
becomes so complicated. And now you need to have a single source of authorization layer, right? But it's just not about authorization, it's also about context aware authority, right? You need to change, fine tune these permissions every now and then, right? Earlier, when we used banking applications, for example, like I might have provided a standard instruction to my bank to pay to Claude and OpenAI services, right? It was a very static user flow because Claude always charges me $100 or some X amount, right? But when I'm going to a doctor, one day the doctor may charge me $20 just for a general checkup. Other day he may charge $10,000 for it, sort of full body checkup, right? So it's not about the payment. It's not about your permissions to pay $10 versus $10,000. It is about the context aware capabilities of that stuff, and that's what we are built for. The fact that we are recognizing participants, not it's just not as you asked, like it's just not a database technology, right? Fundamentally new computation paradigm where participants have existence in the computation. So when participants have existence in the computation, they can fine tune each and every parameter according to their requirements. And that's what we say, that we are the context infrastructure for the internet, right? Especially for agentic economy. So
Mm.
which will allow you to fine tune your user experience and
Mm.
permissions for every interaction that you do.
So something jumps at, jumps to my mind. So today, what you have in competition is like your name, and what you're bringing is bringing yourself into competition. So today
Yeah.
it's like your name in competition, and what contextual compute is doing is kind of bringing you into competition. So you're sort of an existence. And the other thing that I kind of got from what you said is probably it's like going forward, this participant layer is kind of the idea where agents and apps log into you as
Do
opposed to
you?
you
Yeah.
logging into them. So you exist, so they kind of get the access from you.
Yeah, think like this. This is a universal layer that every app can talk to, every app can utilize it. Doesn't need to be public always. Yes, we're a public chain. Now is the first open source implementations or open network implementation of the participant layer, which is built on the contextual compute stack. Even on the public infrastructure, not every information needs to be public. You can always hold the encrypted data as well and give selective access, selective disclosure to these applications which are running on.
So kind of every enterprise can have their own participant layer, and they can interoperate on an as needed basis. Yeah, very interesting. So Adi, your background has been doing something on tokens. You were at Bima before, right? So do you have any interesting experience in how contextual compute and participant layer and what you're doing at MOI? Is it solving anything new? Are you doing anything interesting?
Yeah, so I'm actually building something called STIF, which stands for Safe Token Infrastructure. Um, so let me give you a little bit of context about first why STIF. So essentially, the way payments work today, merchants pay around 2 to 5% on every single transaction to major card companies like Mastercard or Visa. And I mean, these are just infrastructure for like literal plastic cards, right? That have been decades in the working. And this is a massive tax on like business. Then stablecoins came along, right? And everyone thought, oh, the problem solved. Merchants don't pay any tax anymore. But essentially, when you switch to USDC, um, sure, the transaction fee is gone. But Circle is now sitting on a $60 billion like plus in reserves, and they earn about 4% interest per year. That's over $1.7 billion a year that neither the merchant nor the end consumer ever sees. This whole problem that the stablecoin try to solve, which is removing the middleman. We're not really removing the middleman. We just changed who the middleman is, right? And Another deeper issue is that money today is dumb. Like, it has no context. A dollar doesn't know why it's being spent, under what rules, for what purposes. So, all the intelligence like loyalty points, like rewards, campaigns, they get bolted on as separate siloed systems that don't talk to each other at all. So, yeah, I mean, that's why I started building Stiff. What if merchants could issue their own digital dollar, their own stablecoin, keep the yield, and also make the money smart, not through separate loyalty programs. For example, a Walmart coin knows that 5% back on groceries expires in 7 days. That's an example of a campaign Walmart could have. And that rule, 5% back on groceries, can be baked into like the, let's say, stablecoins rules itself. It doesn't have to be sitting in some treasury with USDC. It doesn't have to be an application built on top of USDC where, Walmart doesn't see any of the profit or the interest they make from it. The reason why this works on contextual compute and why this works on MOI is, well, two reasons. One, because of MOI being a context infrastructure, because of the fact that it has contextual, like it's built on contextual compute. You're able to basically set rules and, like programmatically decide reward campaigns all within one single asset, like one single digital asset. And more than that, well, one of MOI's most fundamental features is called native assets, where essentially assets are issued directly at the protocol level. Unlike Ethereum, you're not deploying an ERC20 contract on someone else's chain and like duct taping the context on top to smart contracts, right? On MOI, the asset is essentially first class primitive, and context, policy, identity all live at the asset layer natively. So the money itself knows its purpose. It's by default safe. With Stiff, companies can own their own digital dollar and not rent payment rails essentially. So yeah, I mean, that's the motivation behind Stiff. That's what I'm trying to build. And yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So I want to touch a little bit more. I know I've been part of this design to some extent. So let's talk a little bit about this whole native asset thing that you talked about. Adi. One thing that I like to think of it in simple terms. Today's blockchains, the smart contracts are like communal piggy banks, right? So everybody goes and puts their dollar tokens into the piggy bank. So the piggy bank for every token, and then my token, your token, Rahul's token, Vardhan's token, all of them get into the piggy bank, and then Vardhan, being not a user, goes and breaks the piggy bank, and all our all our tokens gets lost, right? So or somebody. And those piggy banks then are controlled by the smart contracts, some codes which can be buggy as well. And in Moai, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rahul, here, it's more like everybody has their own piggy bank. Rahul has got his own piggy bank. AK has got his own piggy bank. Vardhan has their own piggy bank, and then kind of I have my 3 tokens in it. Vardhan has got his 300 tokens in it, and kind of the logic is. Rules are independent, working on my piggy bank. So if I break my piggy bank, I lose my tokens, and Vardhan doesn't lose his.
Yeah, when we give existence to participants, then we don't need to manage tokens in smart contracts because now we have a existence to participants through the context objects. The token can be completely held at the participant level, right? Today, why do we hold tokens at the contract level? Because the participants doesn't have existence, right? For example, in Ethereum, the only thing that you can ever held in account level is just their Ethereum token. For Ethereum, you're just a wallet, right? In my, right, you are beyond a wallet. You have existence through this, and the computer science term, your existence is through something called context superstate, right? Which is multi-dimensional structure, which holds your assets, your preferences, your intelligence, right? Your trust preferences. It is a multi-dimensional structure which helps you to hold everything associated with you, right? Mostly about values. Right? So we don't need smart contracts to manage tokens or hold tokens. For us, smart contracts are simple logics. They're just pure business rules because now we have a far more superior structure which can hold participant data.
So the states are managed at the participant level,
Participant
Rahul.
level. Yep. Yep.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So you said an interesting word called context superstate. So what is it? It's a new
Mhm.
kind of a data structure of sort, or what is it?
So, in a simple term, yeah, it's a new structure. It's a composite, multidimensional structure that we have defined. To keep it in simple English, think like it's your own personal backpack, right? You can hold your books, your laptop, your money, your water bottle, right? You can hold your documents, legal documents. You can hold anything in your backpack, right? And it's controlled by your cryptography. So your friend cannot open your backpack without you signing it, without you putting your biometric. So context super state is like your personal backpack secured by your cryptography
And it comes with you wherever you go.
wherever you go, right? So now when you go to college, you open your backpack, you give access to your friend to take your laptop. When you go to bank, you give access to your backpack to hold some token, to take some money out, right? When you go to a restaurant, you do something else. So that's the point. Context superstate is the computer science representation of your backpack, a personal backpack.
Very, very interesting. Can you then eliminate things like, or have a better version of things like swaps? Because one of the two large problems in DeFi that we have been looking at it is one is this because assets are stored at the smart contract level. There is quite a bit of fragmentation, right? So my assets are sitting in 100 piggy banks now, and then somebody wants to lend to me based on the assets in the 100 piggy banks. Now he has to bring all of them together to really look at how much I'm worth, right? So there is a lot of fragmentation, uh, and that's one problem that I think the industry has had. I think there are quite a few solutions, but I think bridges and bridge hacks have been a problem, right? Does this idea of context superstate and native assets address that? And the second question would be, if you put all of them in one place, like a liquidity pool, right? So it's like a giant honeypot that get attacked. So, and that's another problem maybe this solves. And probably the last one, which is the most interesting one as a distributed systems engineer for me, is uh, if you move the state to Rahul and Adi and Ananta and Vardhan, now the state has moved away from the code. Now, can the same code process million people at the same time? That becomes very interesting, isn't it? So that's one is obviously the security thing. The other one is really exciting. Now I can build an Uber application. I can just focus on what I want to focus on the code, but then everybody can access the same code because the code doesn't have to worry about that to manage the state.
Yeah, I mean, you have the answer for yourself. Exactly. You're right. So there are these fundamental problems in current day blockchains, right? The way they're being designed in infrastructure. So today there's only one design pattern where to build any sensible DeFi application, the only way to do this is you pool your assets in one contract, right? And the contract has business rules which moves swaps, maybe bridge, right? So the only design pattern which is allowed in current day blockchains is that design pattern where to do any sensible operation, you need to move your token into a contract, like pool, right? Now, the most of the attacks that we have seen in the industry is about this pool getting hacked, right? And now, whereas in MOI, since it's not in my pool, it's not in a pool, it's in my backpack, right? You have your own backpack. Everyone has their own context superstate in their backpacks. So only when I interact to you or when I talk to a particular DeFi application, only then the access to my asset is available. So your assets are natively safe. They are not pooled in a contract. So think like this, right? So assume you and your brother sharing a same piggy bank, right? Both of you has put token money into that piggy bank. So now your brother has access to it, you have access to it, so he can take off your money. And whereas in more, I think like you have your piggy bank and your brother has his own piggy bank, right? That's one thing. Gives you more control, more safety.
So something like a swap, then Rahul, you don't have to move the asset, but I just need to move my intent about the asset.
Thinking about the transfer. For example, assume I'm building Uniswap like thing on mine, right? So the way it works is basically I put an intent that I want to exchange some X tokens with Y tokens, right? And I don't need to really move my tokens into an AMM based DEX. I don't need to deposit it. I can just put an approval. I can just put an intent saying that, hey, I want to swap this, right? Now, the matchmaking can be done on chain, can be done using a very intelligent AI system, right? where we are heading today. So we are currently working on it. The code word for this is called as trust swap in the
Trust
company.
swap. Oh,
Trust swap.
okay. Mm.
That's a code name.
Mm.
We are currently working out on this. As I told you, now our primary focus is not about building the technology. We've been going for 6 years. It is to build some usable applications and show to the world, like, hey, this is how you build applications which are true, which promotes participant centricity, right? So we're kind of working on it. So hopefully we'll roll out a design document, or we'll roll out a news document which you guys can explore. And then the second question that you asked, does it provide you more performance? Absolutely, right? Because now I don't really need to always log the contract. Earlier, the contract used to be logged because the contract was holding some assets, right? So that you won't have this double spend on all of the problems, right? Now the contract, as I told you, is just mere business rules, which facilitates and validates the transfer. So million people can use the same contract at the same point of time. All of us are not proud with the same contract.
That's sick, Rahul. I'm going to push you on this for me in another call. So there's some architectural questions that I have in my head, which that's a really sick architecture. So uh, if you don't lock the contract, what do you lock?
We don't lock the contract, we lock the participant, right? So when the input is probable, and the output is, the logic is just a logic, right? So and it is immutable.
Very nice. And and so that's interesting. So Adi, you're also doing some DevRel work at MOI, right? So you kind of take adoption, make people use this. So talk a little bit more about how do people build on this? Are there any programs that you are doing which kinds of makes it easy? Does everybody need to? What is the learning curve to learn the protocol and things along those lines?
Yeah, so I mean, at the moment, we have a couple of campaigns that we're running, which are primarily with universities. We have something called MyForge. It's a very highly selective, curated program, only meant for developers who seriously understand participant centricity and really want to uh, explore a particular use case. Essentially, we get about 5 to 6 developers, and they work very, very closely with the core protocol team, which is which is an opportunity that in some time will be very, very difficult because they're going to get really, really busy, or they are already very, very busy. But so far we've had Purdue University, Boiler Blockchain, my alma mater actually. They came in and built this application called Sagio, which is essentially like an agent-to-agent communication platform. Rahul, you can talk about it a little more if you'd like to. Essentially, they worked with us for almost 3 or 4 months, where we onboarded them onto different features of the Moist tech stack. We were very, very rigorously help them essentially plan out the architecture and finally build out the end product. And we're also going to be working with Oxford University in about a month. We have a couple of universities in India as well we're working with at the moment. I think there's PCCOE, Presidency College. So this is how we're engaging with universities. I personally believe that student developers are the most excitable at this point because they're always looking to explore and try new technology. So any university student or any student organization out there who's um, looking for different opportunities, looking to learn, looking to build on the participant layer, please reach out to me and we can definitely get something started there. Outside of that, we have a couple of different initiatives. We have something called MOI Sprint, which is for most Ethereum developers or almost all Ethereum developers. I think it's a very common trend for people to essentially use this thing called Speedrun Ethereum, which is a gamified learning experience for developers. So that's probably one of the ways I also learned how to actually code on Ethereum. Yeah, I've essentially built that out for more as well. We have a couple of challenges live now with a few more planned. But yeah, I mean everything runs through our Discord. Our engineer is always active there. I'm always active there. Anyone who wants to build something, just feel free to drop your ideas there, and we can definitely get something started.
Yeah, those are some pretty cool campaigns, Aditya. I have a very, very quick question for you around those lines. You mentioned about AI agents in mostly like every third line of your explanation. So where do you actually see AI agents being useful today in a real developer workflow?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I can actually give good perspective here because I learned development just about 6 months before AI, or like a year before AI became everyone's best friend. I'd say the thing that AI does best is, it works as your assistant really well. If you give it a specific task that you want to implement, it'll do that really, really well. But what it can't do for you is think on your behalf. I've seen a lot of my friends who, basically outsource their brain to these AI agents to, say, rather than saying, I want to build a DEX, I want to build like a participant-centric DEX with this feature, they just say, you know, build me a DEX on MOI without any detail, any like infrastructure or architectural based detail, which is more on the design thinking. So that's something that you actually got to think for yourself before you can ask an AI to implement. I think what it can do really well is obviously it can help you with designing your application, whether it's front end or UI UX stuff. It can help you implement your backend and your logic, but the actual logic should come from your head before you try to make the like LLM or the agent implement it. So the match should come from you, and it should just be your slave almost. That's where I see the most use as a developer. I mean, I've vibe coded a ton of different applications, both on MOI and off MOI, and I've noticed this trend to be the same thing. Sometimes it gets a lot more tedious when you ask it to think on your behalf, because you're gonna definitely find some holes in your program later. Something's gonna be missing. You're gonna have some kind of security leak. So it's always better to like have your architecture clear in your head before you essentially have the AI implemented for you.
Absolutely, Adi. You mentioned vibe code in your conversation. Actually, I am a marketer and still I'm like trying to develop apps now through vibe coding and everything. Now, since these LLMs have become too good, I want to ask this to Rahul. If AI can write most of the code today, what actually makes a good developer now? What actually separates a good developer now if everybody can vibe code something and build applications very easily?
The fact that you're trying to build application makes me scared now. Okay. So earlier programming was a skill. No, I would not say programming. Coding was a skill, right? If you can code in a particular language so that the computer can understand was a skill that people have utilized for quite some time now. I don't think now programming or coding is a skill anymore. To answer your question very precisely, what makes a good software engineer is about problem solving. That was always the case. Okay. Development, programming is only like 20% of the job that a software developer does or a software engineer does in day-to-day job as well, right? For example, we at Serva, right, we spend a lot of time brainstorming, designing, right, iterating over the design compared to the time that we spend in development, right? Development is only like 10 to 20% of the job. The real problem is in understanding the requirements, breaking down the requirements into something tangible in terms of a design, architecture, iterating on it, right? Identifying the literature around it. Yes, it can make your life better, but I would say what it really means to be a good software engineer is about your problem solving skills. I mean, I'm just touching on what Adi said, right? If you can clearly articulate what is your requirement, what is the solution, and what are the design choices that you have made, and why have you made these design choices, right? Then programming or coding is the least of the problem, right? That is what AI is taking away, right? And AI can be your peer programmer, right? We have this concept called peer programming in Sarva, right? So I write code and my colleague write test cases for it. Or he writes code and I write test cases for it. It's a very proven technique. Like a lot of good companies use this technique so that the quality of the code is better, right? But more than the quality, right, it's about we sharing the same idea. We both the people are thinking through the same idea, right? So it's like the bad cop and good cop, right? So one guy is thinking about the idea and writing some code, other guy is criticizing, hey, why have you done this, right? Or why didn't you do it in this way, right? So AI can be that peer programmer for you, but as it stands today, right, if you have a complex problem, AI cannot give an out of the box solution for it, right? Whereas if you have a solution, it will help you to develop it or program it, right? That's where I see the AI thing moving up, and we as an organization we do use a lot of AI agents, right? It has really made our workflows better. But now the developers are able to ship faster, right? And the code quality has also improved because now we are using AI agents as the monitoring systems to monitor the code that the actual person has written. We didn't replace any people at the office, right? We have used agents to improve their efficiencies, right? So, and PR reviews. Like we have automated bunch of our workflows in our engineering processes. It has helped us to get better, right? And but the core research that we are known for, right? The research that we do, the problems that we're trying to solve, uh, are still our problems, right?
So, Vardhan, I have a different perspective on this. Okay, so when I started coding, I told you in the last podcast that we use punch cards to give it the AC 1030. Okay, so 640 KB was a luxury. Okay, I'm talking about 640 KB. Okay, was a luxury, right? So if somebody had told me at that point in time, even before AI, we could do this magical thing through applications by swiping things. For example, if you had to put something, say, bold or a double blink of a character on a screen, you had to write 20 lines of code those days to exactly figure out where in the screen that we need to make happen and give instructions. Okay. Now, if somebody had told me at the point that in 20, 25 years, we will be at the point where we will swipe things across and things will automatically happen in application, you would have looked like AI to me. I would have said, no way that's happening. So it is just the next generation of progression that's happening from a tool standpoint. AI will allow you to it'll increase productivity. People will be successful. People will do more with more, right? So as Rahul rightly said, is always for software engineering. Software engineering is about the ability to build something and figure out whether it has got value, because as we rightly said, whether it's got utility, and probably we can try lot more things now. That doesn't necessarily mean that's better. And unless you're converging, right? You can do a lot more things and keep diverging. So your smartness is how do you eliminate the noise and converge using the tool that we have. It's like the junk email problem that you have today. So when we move from postcard to email, did email increase productivity? Yes. But then it created a lot of junk emails as well. So similarly, you should not be trying out every idea that just because you're able to code code using AI. So your ability to kind of prioritize, use the right judgment, test it out quickly, and converge to something which is useful to the end user is where the value is going to be, and that's where the value was always. It's never changed. So obviously we can amplify some of that, but then it'll still come down to having fundamental ideas tested out, having a foundational software engineering and design, which is required. Be consistent about it, get user feedback, and kind of improve on that, right? So so it's extremely useful, but I think it'll be useful if you use it as a tool which increases productivity for you and enhances what you do well. So
Absolutely. I can totally understand what you are saying. And I believe every dev who would be listening to the last 10 minutes of this podcast would be so happy to hear this. Because a lot of my friends who are devs now, they are too much worried about where AI is heading to, what will happen to their jobs and everything else.
you can build a lot more, man. If you enjoy building, believe me, AI is very fun to work with. But then if you think that it's going to give you new products and markets that you don't have today, just because you can code, I think that's where it's going to get wrong, right? So obviously, you still have to go and test it out, do the requirements, figure it out. So you can try more things because uh, as a developer, and I'm sure same thing with Rahul and Adi and any deep dev who has been there, we always had ideas which we couldn't try. We always had ideas which we couldn't try, right? Now this is like a kid in a candy store, right? So we have the ability to test all of these things, right? So and unfortunately, you may find out that 99% of the ideas you're smoking. Okay, that's different, but then it's but at least you will figure it out. It's a great opportunity for developers to try new things. So I talk to a lot of people and I tell them this is going to fall in two buckets, right? People who say AI is not going to change anything and say no, that's wrong. AI is going to change things. AI is going to have an impact. There's another camp which says, okay, then how do I take this new tool and increase my productivity, come up with AI native things that we couldn't try before. So I think Adi already did something on that with Coco, right, Adi? So you did something for the developers, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I made a like our Moi's main mascot is Monkey. I essentially made a like an NFT minting platform which has some really nice, cool visuals. Has about 100 different postcards of Monkey in different crypto conferences across the world. That took me about 2 days to write. I mean, there was a lot of conversations, a lot of back and forth with Cursor, but that was fully VAD coded. I did not write a single line of code on that, except for the .env file. I did not type anything in that. I mean, apart from the prompts, of course, but that was involved like very rigorous. I had to say, for the code contract, I want you to use MAS1. I want you to use this is a parameter. This is how I want the minting to be done. So I sometimes think that writing these prompts, I might as well write the code itself, but it does do a good job with like encapsulating everything together.
No, it's in a very counterintuitive way, right? I think you're a mathematician, you like math, so obviously it'll appeal to you more, Adi, right? It's a lot difficult to write a poem than to write a code.
Yeah, it
Because
is.
the second one is the first one is very open ended. It's ambiguous, right? The second one is very definitive. So, in a very counterintuitive way, to be precise in the prompt engineering is going to be a lot more difficult than writing code. So. You're going to see some gyrations of that, right? So you're going to get some tools which allow you to. So obviously, agents take back some of it, but still, I think you need to be precise about what you want to communicate, right? Ambiguity is always so prompt engineering is not easy because it can easily be misunderstood. So that's the challenge. Or let me put it this way: we don't know what it understood yet. Uh, it's always probabilistic. So that's
I mean, that is
one.
ask, right?
Yeah,
And the challenge is it doesn't ask you, right? So
yeah,
It assumes.
yeah.
yeah.
So
So I
I
think that's the problem, Vardhan.
yeah.
I think if the forcing function or the limiting function for AI, right? and and it is always be the case is that it'll be always be probabilistic, right? It'll always be probabilistic because your inputs are not deterministic. What I mean by that is if you say something in English is very different than exactly specifying through an algebra, right? They're very different things. So they're very so the AI will always be probabilistic. It will always hallucinate. So this ability to trust it based on output is always going to be an uh, thing which builds over time. So you'll always have this, and that's where this whole thing where we initially talked about going back to user authority, user preferences, having a semantic layer which can enforce authority in a very fixed fashion is very important, right? So uh, the A cannot come and say, okay, 99% of the time, I'll make sure that you get the right drug. Hey, that doesn't work, right? That's to be you can't be wrong 1% of the time about the allergy that I have, right? You have to be sure 100% of the time. So and so that's a limiting factor, and that's always going to be there because the system is more probabilistic and not deterministic, whereas traditional programming is deterministic. And we have some ideas in contextual compute on how we want to link them, right? How do you want to make sure that you have the deterministic user input or the participant control over a probabilistic AI machine? Think of it like an human controlled intelligent network as opposed to just an human participating intelligent network, if you want to think of it, right? So I think that's where the fault lines are going to lie long term. So I don't think any of the programmers or developers need to feel that as long as they add value and they create, because judgment will still be with human beings.
Absolutely. We got to understand that this is the golden time to build something of your own, and just got to capitalize on that. And I believe because a lot of people watching this are probably trying to get into this space, and most devs today are still confused about how to start their journey in Web3. Aditya, if you had to give a very, very simple step by step breakdown or a direction, what would that look like for a dev or someone who is just starting to build and wants to get into Web3?
Yeah, okay. So I'll start off by saying that I've only been in the space for the last, let's say, 4-ish years. I'd say my biggest takeaway is always be open to let's say, learning new ideas and learning new concepts. Because to fully be honest about MOI as well, it took me a while to fully grasp, let's say, the power of what we're building at MOI, what contextual compute means. And maybe if I was a little more, if I kept a little bit more of an open mind, I might have understood a little quicker. And this is something I found to be true even when I was learning how to build. There are a lot of, you don't know what you don't know, right? So you always got to be open to like a lot of new ideas, a lot of new inspirations. That, and I just say, just get a lot of experience with hackathons. Like, just build a lot of your own projects, try new things out. Don't stick to a rigid formula. And yeah, I mean that's essentially what I did. There's a lot of different like things you can try, a lot of different things you can do. To summarize, just keep an open mind and try new things.
Got it, got it. Can you still give me a just a step by step guide of something like start learning coding anywhere from YouTube, anywhere from LLMs now, okay? Start solving some problems, building something of your own, something along those lines, so that the devs or the builders watching this have a much easier step by step guide or something.
Yeah, okay, sure. So I would say, like, start off by looking at some understanding the basic foundation concepts that are behind what you're building, so what infrastructure you're building on. Once you understood that, don't spend too much of time on that. Go online, look for a couple of solid examples on specific applications to understand everything from logic to integrations. And the first two steps, do it very, very quickly. And immediately go to the third step, which is just build your own project. Like, I don't think there's any other way to learn. There's no theoretical way of learning how to develop an application except by actually doing it. You will face a lot of roadblocks. You'll find a lot of problems along the way. But the more problems you face, the more experience you get as a developer. And like Rahul said, like problem solving is most of what makes a developer. Like, anyone can write some code, but making that code usable, making that code, the product, useful is the actual challenge. So, focus on one or two very, very minimally, and directly start trying to build your own project. Once you have reached a certain level of confidence where you're able to ideate for yourself, go to hackathons, go to different developer circles where you can build with people and understand new ideas, understand new concepts. Then eventually let's say, your skills and your efforts will get validated through, different hackathon conversations or prizes you may win. um and Essentially, yeah, that's what I would do if I was a developer starting today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Rahul, if you wanna add some one or two points.
I mean, I have a very simple framework to learn anything or do anything, right? I call this as like it's a known thing. It's not something which I came up with. We call it as why, what, how, right? So anything that you're doing, you should know why you're doing this. What is the outcome of that, and how are you going to do this, right? If you're learning a language, if you're learning a skill, if you're learning a tool, right? If you're solving a problem in general, is about this why, what, how framework. Why are you solving this problem? What does this problem cater to, and how are you going to do it, right? How is the least, I would say, how is not as important as why and what, right? Once you understand why and once you understand what, then how is pretty straightforward. You can easily figure this out. I would say always employ. I always use this why, what, how framework whenever I am trying to learn something or when I'm trying to solve something. I would say, as Adi said, right, there's nothing like a perfect time, perfect spot, perfect technology, or perfect company, right? There's nothing like perfect. You should get started, start hacking, right? Start writing code. Of course, when I wrote the matrix multiplication program for the first time when I was in college, like not in college, in school, it took me a day. So that's how it gets started, right? And I'm sure everyone has the same sort of problems, right? Because you're running something new. And in this age of AI, right? So it's all, as I iterate again on the same point, right? It's about problem solving, right? I would say forget about the programming language, right? Forget about the technology. I mean, I've seen a lot of these youngsters very focused on AI or machine learning, or blockchain, data science. No, right? Put that aside, right? Let's focus on problem solving. Try to just do some basic problem solving things, problem solving stuff, right? That has nothing to do with programming, right? That is purely about logic. That's purely about you tackling understanding a problem, breaking down the problem into small chunks, and then trying to figure out how do you program it, right? So I would say focus on problem solving. Once you get into problem solving, then you can learn a language, then you can upskill to learn a technology or a tool, right? So without problem solving, you taking a course about data science or AI machine learning and how understanding how LLMs work will not really add any value, right? So I would say that's my suggestion, right? Focus more on problem solving than more than about tools, right? Today I see a lot of people worry about tools than the fundamentals. The fundamentals is all about problem solving.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think there was a very, I think 2 3 days back, I think maybe yesterday, 2 days back, before we're done, I saw a video from Arvind Srinivas, Perplexity, right? So he said,
Perplexity. Yeah.
so I'm sure you guys might have seen it too. So he said, how did he get started? He said, look, he was first asked to he was enrolled in an ML competition. He didn't know anything about ML, nothing, right? But then he goes there, and then they gave him a bunch of problems, and then you find some patterns, and then using those patterns, you're supposed to uh, predict the answers and other problems, and he came out to be a winner. So, and he comes back and says that the reason why he was able to do that is that what should you focus on? Focus on something that you are you're good at and you like it, and where naturally you're better than others. So it's just and I thought it was a very good advice. He's a guy he said, I didn't know anything about ML, I didn't know anything, but I had this ability to look at patterns, and then I was able to win that competition because I looked at those patterns and I predicted, and I recognized that most of the people there were ML people, and so I got this idea that I'm good at something, and I'm also better than most of the other people at that, right? So it just, I thought it was very interesting. So there's no silver bullet, right? So we all will think that somebody building Perplexity would have been an AML guru to get started. Of course, he eventually became one, but then that's not where it got started. It started from the simple ability to match patterns to really figure out how to predict things in that. So uh, I think innovation is about curiosity, but also figuring out what your strengths are and figuring out where what you do naturally is kind of better than the average, right? So it's a journey that you need to figure out, right? So, and the best way to do that is, as both Adi and Rahul said, get started, right? So there is no perfect perfect situation. There will always be something to complain about or some better situation to wait for. Make taking that first step, right? So it is the so you as Michael Jordan says, you definitely miss those shots that you don't take. You absolutely miss them. There is 100% guarantee. So there are a couple of points I want to drill down with Rahul because I don't get a lot of time to spend maybe another session later on about how exactly the consensus works in this idea of context superstate. How does that blocking that participant work? How does native? So those are some interesting questions that probably even do a whiteboard session, so where we are able to discuss a little bit more of that. Obviously, my answers are always long, but then let me tell you, when I started this journey in 2016, 17, contextual compute was an idea, participant centricity uh, was a theory. So this whole idea of how value is different than information was just an idea, right? I think translating that into a bunch of systems and capabilities in an architecture and a design, and right now, which Rahul has done quite a bit, and then Adi right now taking it and really making it a system which can drive people uh, is pretty fascinating journey, right? So what we are doing with contextual compute is very foundational. Obviously, it's out there, so it's got its own set of niceties and also uh, fair amount of caution that we need to exercise when we make these decisions. So, but it's been an exciting journey.
Absolutely.
Absolutely been exciting journey. We are just getting started. So the participant layer is just getting started. With builders like Rahul, I think this is only get interesting. And are there anything very, very interesting that you're working on? You want to you want to close with? Anything interesting going to come in the next few weeks?
Yeah. I can tease it right now. We're actually working on launching a new MOI website. I don't want to drink my own Kool-Aid over here, but I love the ability that AI gives you to put your thoughts to life. Let me not spoil it too much with too much details, but that probably one of the best data rooms in the crypto in the Web3 space. Like it has an analytics dashboard and an AI chatbot.
So a classic example of somebody taking use of AI, Vardhan. That is just in so so anything exciting that you're working on, Rahul, that we can look forward to?
Yeah, a lot of yeah. I cannot create websites looking stuff. I work with visible, but what I'm currently working on is something very bring to. We are trying to bring trust to agents, right? So the problem that we discussed, right? How do we set conditions for agents to operate on, right? I'm currently hacking around with OpenClaw. Code name is called as TrustClaw. Uh, wrong way to go there to make OpenClaw trusted because there are fundamental problems in the way these agents work today. But I'm taking a hack at it. We are building a small SDK or yeah, basically package that you can integrate into OpenClaw so that it makes your interactions with OpenClaw more trusted. You have authority over what your OpenClaw does. Right? We have seen what's going on. People are going crazy with OpenClaw, right? So we are able to put some barricades to that craziness, right? We are able to now OpenClaw, at least with this in the initial days, the OpenClaw will behave as you want to some extent. And we have a great, we are working out on a full-fledged module, which you guys can integrate into other agentic orchestrators as well, like OpenClaw. So yeah, we are building some cool stuff there. Apart from that, as I told, we are building Trust Swap, right, or Safe Swap.
I think that's a sick use case, Rahul, because you told me that the matching can happen off chain using agents. So kind of I can send my agent there sitting out looking at everything and keep swapping.
That you can ask your open play agent to find the best match for you, and it is according to your preferences, right? For example,
So your transfers kind of become peer to peer, but then your
right,
intent is kind
it
of
happens more to the
that's
contract, right? And your agents will act in your best interest to find you the best match. You're not relying upon a third party match, right? And so now, since this is the assets are not pooled,
we should
you don't.
definitely have a conversation around this. My
Yeah,
brain
we
is
will do. Once
yeah.
at the demo, I'm
Yeah.
very excited to come and
Mm,
showcase a demo here and see
mm,
how I can use AI
mm,
agents to
mhm.
find the best match for my value without using any centralized resolvers or
Yeah. No,
decentralized
no, I
resolvers.
think wow. So you're kind of neutered the MEV problem completely. That's just sick,
Yeah, yeah, to greater
right? So
extent.
because
Yes,
MEV is today because the person who's ordering and the person who's matching is the same. Now you
matching.
decouple them, right? So anybody can become a matcher. Ah, that, that's a
My
very,
my
very.
my fundamental architecture saw as I told you, right?
Mm,
We
mm,
are a more flexible protocol. We have better
mm,
design patterns that you can use to solve these problems on chain, right?
mm.
If you code exactly like if you develop how exactly like you have developed Uniswap on today on Moi, of course you'll also end up in the same problems. But architecturally, we
Mm,
have better alternatives, right? So the
mm,
protocol
mm.
allows you to build better alternatives because of its design, unique design advantages over the existing protocols. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to claim any of these things in this call. I'm sure we're going to have a
Yeah,
separate
absolutely. Right. So Trust Cloud, Trust Swap, and the super sick
safe.
website, and
Data room.
and the really cool data room also.
Data room. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. AK, I think I already have like more than 10 questions already brewing up in my mind, which we can ask Rahul and Adi on another episode of the podcast. But before we close this, I have like uh, a last question for you, Rahul. Where do you think we are heading with all of this? Are we moving towards more human control or more autonomous systems?
I mean, our vision or our mission is to have these autonomous humans in the loop for these autonomous systems, right? That's what we are fighting for. That's what our stack is built for, right? As I told you, we are bringing participants to internet. We are bringing participants to the agentic economy, right? So I feel uh, as it stands today, yes, we are running behind autonomous agents, but that will not turn out to be very successful if humans are not in the loop, right? So that's what our mission is, and fortunately, this time we are in a better shape. We have a technology to prove. We have everything working, right? So people can really use our technology to build some cool solutions. I feel like we're in a good shape now, as an organization, as a team. More than technology, I feel like our vision and mission has really been considered by people. Ananta was talking this for quite some time now, right? I guess we are the only company who was talking about context awareness in the Web3 space for the past 7 years, right? No one spoke about context aware blockchains, right? No one
Yeah.
even considered the word called context aware. Even people criticize us, hey, what the hell is this context awareness, right? So now people are saying, hey, context is everywhere. Context is everything, right? I guess that's where it is heading, right? And there's no context without participant, right? And there's no autonomous system without participants, right?
Well said, Rahul. I think that's where it's going.
Yes,
Vardhan. I
yes.
think, of course, we'll move towards autonomous systems. So uh, maybe it was a lucky shot when I called it 6 years back, saying that context is the next big thing, right? So I'm making a call again. Participant is the next big thing. Okay, so I think uh, that's where it's going, because that's how the real world operates. That's it. It's a very simple. If technology is going to get more and more closer to your life. So you have seen me
Yeah.
say this, right? We're going into a digitally interacting world. Your life will, from where I started, where I see, and where it will go. I think everything will work on digital. So that means digital needs to reflect how human beings operate, not the other way around, right? For it to be successful. So, uh, not make man the machines, make the machines become work with the man, right? So that's the that's where probably it's going to. What we are trying to do at contextual computer, what Raho, Adi, and Raho are doing at MOI, is really this ability to reflect human preferences and real world choices in the digital world, so that it kind of can drive the fundamental value that Rahul was talking about, the benefits in a practical fashion to everyone, right? So, because it's got to be also fair, and not from a philosophical point, from a societal point, it has to be fair, because most of progress happens at a hyper local environment, whether it is intelligence, whether it is value, whether it is trust, whether it is security. Everything is typically in real world, it's hyper local. Global network is okay, but it has to be context aware and relevant in hyper local fashion. I think, and that's the whole thing, right? Without that, I think you will have a very good technology, but then it will not be useful. It will not be fundamental.
Absolutely. I think what's really interesting is we started this conversation talking about builders and we ended up talking about responsibility. Because whether it's AI agents or protocols, at the end of the day, we are still the ones designing these systems, and whatever we build is eventually what people live through. I can seriously continue this chat for another 1 or 2 more hours, but as AK mentioned, we should have another episode and talk a lot more about the stuff you guys are building. It was really glad to have you guys here today. Thank you so much for your time,
Thank
and
you for
thank you,
hosting
AK,
that.
for hosting this with me.
No
Thank you.
problem. I think I'm part of the team, and it was really fun talking to Adi and Rahul, looking at it from a different perspective.